Hello and welcome. You are now looking at Zoom.us or Zoom.com. And Zoom.com is a web conferencing and webinar application. Its primary use is to allow individuals to communicate by voice and video, as well as text and chat simultaneously. It's made to be used on both the desktop and mobile application. Individuals who host meetings use it in order to keep their participants engaged during online presentations. It's also used to share information and to provide assistance in real time. It integrates with a number of online platforms already used by people in their everyday lives and business, and expands its capabilities in even more applications using what's called the Zoom App Marketplace. Now in this course, we will look at the basics to both joining and hosting a meeting. And while the free plan is very popular, we'll also look at the lowest level of the Pro plan. We'll also look at a paid part of the plan utilizing webinars, which gives you marketing automation as well as monetization. So in the first video, we will start with a quick start guide to starting a meeting. Welcome back. Now in order to start a meeting quickly, if you don't have an account, you'll need to come to Zoom.us and then you'll need to sign up for a free account. You'll be asked for verification of your date of birth. You'll then be asked for an email address to sign up to Zoom. You'll then need to go to your email box in order to confirm your email. You should then see an email from Zoom in your box. You'll then need to click Activate your account. You'll then be asked if you are signing up on behalf of a school. You'll indicate whether you are or you aren't. You'll then click Continue. You'll then need to write in your name and your password. Typically, you can skip this step unless you have someone in mind to invite to Zoom. You'll then need to click this step. Now typically, you'll get a link right away that will allow you to start your first meeting. You'll see that link on your screen. What you can do here is you can either click this link or you can click this button that says Start Meeting Now. Now you're typically going to need to download a plugin to your hard drive in order to start working with Zoom. And so to do that, you'll need to save the plugin to your hard drive, and you'll need to do that in your current browser configuration. Right now, you're looking at Microsoft Edge. However, you can do the same thing that we're about to do in Google Chrome as well as Mozilla Firefox. You'll then want to run the plugin that you have just downloaded. Now what you're typically going to see is that you're going to see the Zoom client open, and then it's going to turn into this waiting area in order for you to start your meeting. Now for the sake of a quick start guide, we're going to assume that you have computer audio or some kind of headset that you are operating with. And if you do, you can just click this button that says Join with Computer Audio. And then Zoom will tell you that you are using the computer audio. Now right now, you are technically inside of the meeting room. Now the only other thing that you'll need is you'll need other individuals to join you in that room. And in order for them to join you in the Zoom room individually that you were in, what you'll need to do is you'll need to click this button that says Invite Others. That's going to give you a link, and what you're going to do is you're going to copy this invitation. Once you copy that invitation to your clipboard, you'll then need to share that invitation with the individuals that you want to join with you inside of the meeting room. When you share that information, you'll typically be sharing it inside of some messaging application, or perhaps you'll be sharing it in email. What you'll be sharing is you'll be sharing a link, a meeting ID, and then a password if the password is going to be relevant. The individuals receiving this information, they'll then need to join you in the meeting room using this link. Now when that individual gets this invitation and they click the link, this is what they'll see inside of their personal computer. They'll then need to download the software in the same way you did in order to join you in the meeting if they do not have the software already. So one of the things that you'll need to do is you'll need to tell the individual that they're going to need to download some software to their personal computer in order to join you in the meeting, and that they'll need to work through this process in order to join you in real time. Now, you'll know that the other individual or individuals have joined you if you see more than one participant. When you come inside of the Zoom room, you'll typically see one managed participant, and that will typically be you, the presenter or the host. What will happen is when the other individual joins you, this will change from 1 to 2. Now, once the individual has clicked on their meeting invitation, they will then come to your waiting room. And what's going to happen is you'll need to admit those individuals in order for them to become part of the meeting. Now, by default, when you start the first meeting, you are going to have to admit an individual before they become part of your meeting. Now, this is a setting that you can change, but for the sake of this quick start video, we are looking at an invitation that we just sent out from the beginning, and an individual is waiting in order for us to admit them to the room. What we're going to do is we're going to click this button that says See Waiting Room so we can see all the individuals that are waiting for us to admit them. And what you'll see here on the right hand side panel is that you have one person waiting and one participant in the meeting, which is you, the host. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on that one person who is waiting, and we're going to admit them to the room. And you'll now see two individuals that are participating inside of the meeting. In order to communicate with those individuals by text, what you'll need to do is to click this chat button, and you can then chat with the individual by text. What you're going to notice here is that your webcam is turned off by default. You can turn that webcam on in order to show your webcam. You can also share your screen with the individual. So in other words, what you can do is you can click this green button. You'll then have all the screens available to you that you can share with the individual in the Zoom meeting. What you can also do is you can record the meeting to your hard drive. So what you can do here is you can click this button. That will then allow you to record what's being said, as well as record what is showing on your screen to your hard drive in the form of an MP4 video. Now, those are going to be all the settings that you'll need in order to get started quickly using Zoom. Now, we will be looking at these settings in detail in the rest of this course. Welcome back. Now, the free version of Zoom provides you access to the meeting room tools. However, it does have some limitations. For example, the time limit to a group meeting on the free plan is going to be 40 minutes long. And that means then that the meeting will end after 40 minutes, and you and the participants will either have to end the meeting or you'll have to leave the meeting and re-enter to the very same link. What you'll also notice is that as the host, you will not be able to manage some of the other users. That's evident by looking at the first plan over, which is the Pro plan, which gives you access to user management. You also have administrative controls in the paid version, as well as reporting on the activity of the individuals inside of your meeting. The paid version will allow you to store 1 GB of recordings inside of Zoom. That does not exist in the free version. If you want to add on other features, such as additional cloud storage, as well as webinars, which we will go over in a separate video, you do need to have the paid version. Now, the maximum number of participants inside of a Zoom meeting will be 100. If you want to go over that number in a Zoom meeting or a webinar, you'll need to have a paid plan in order to do that. And what you'll see here is that if you hover over this information icon, you'll see that you can go up in number and you can go up in price as a recording of this video. Now, in terms of the video conferencing, web conferencing, and group activity that you saw in the quick start, well, all of those things are going to exist in any plan that you have inside of Zoom. Now, in this course, we will be looking at the lowest level of the paid plan, which is the Pro version. What we will also look to is we will also look to some of the additions that you'll be able to accomplish by having the webinar add-on. Now, in order to purchase a plan, what you're going to need to do is to sign into your account, and you'll do that here in this area of the menu. And you'll see your profile area. You'll see here that you have a specific user type. If you want to upgrade the user type, which is what we would be if we're going to use a paid plan, is to click Upgrade. What we would then do is click Upgrade Account. What you'll then do is to choose the plan that you'll be using. And one of the things you'll notice is that with the Pro plan, you'll see that the Pro plan has a specific cost which you would pay every month. You might think that you have higher costs with more features in the business plan. What may not be evident is that the plan for business requires that you have at least 10 hosts. So if you're not going to have over 10 hosts, what you're going to do is you're probably going to be using the Pro plan in order to get started. We're going to click on the Upgrade button. You'll then need to go through the rest of the payment process. Welcome back. Now, one of the ways of interacting with Zoom is going to be the Zoom client. And you will have the Zoom client if you've downloaded Zoom software in order to join a meeting or in order to start Zoom. And you find the Zoom client on your hard drive by searching for Zoom. You're looking at a Windows 10 personal computer. It's going to be similar in other systems. What we're going to do right now is we're going to open what's called the Zoom app. Now, if you have an account with Zoom, you'll see that you'll already be signed into the Zoom app when it opens. You may need to sign into the Zoom app if you don't have anything available to you indicating that you are signed in. What you're going to notice is that you have available to you settings through this gear. And we're going to click this gear, and that's going to open up your settings area. Now, you're going to see settings here that you can change. And in some cases, there's going to be overlap between what's here in this area as well as what's online inside of your Zoom account. But when you have to change settings to your Zoom meetings or your Zoom webinars, you're going to want to come here first to the Zoom client, because this will control how your computer is going to interact with Zoom. You'll see at the bottom of the client that you have a link here that's going to say View More Settings. That's going to take us to your Zoom account. When you click that link, you're going to see that Zoom will take you to your Zoom account. And on this left side menu, you'll see settings available to you that you can change in order to interact with Zoom. You'll also see here that as long as you're signed into your Zoom account through the client, you will be able to start a meeting from this client. You'll be able to join a meeting from the client. You can schedule a meeting from the client if you have this enabled inside of your account, and you can share your screen inside of the client. What you'll also notice inside of the Zoom client is going to be a chat icon, meetings, and contacts. You can use these separately from the entire system. For example, if we click the contacts button, what you're going to see here is you're going to see a contacts area. And we can click this plus button in order to add a specific contact. If we click add a contact, all we'll need to do is to write in this person's email. And then we can click add contact. What's going to happen is that individual is going to get an invitation to their mailbox. And this person will then be able to join you as a contact. We'll explore what you can do with these contacts in another video. Welcome back. Now, before you start working with the Zoom client, you are going to want to make sure that you have the latest version of Zoom. And to do that, you're going to go to zoom.us/download. You're going to see right at the top that there's going to be an area where you can download the Zoom client for meetings. You're going to want to go to your Zoom client, and you're going to want to go to the Help area and then click About. You're then going to see which version of Zoom that you have. In this case, you might find that your Zoom client is out of date. You will then going to want to download the most recent version so that your Zoom client will be the most secure against hackers and attacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Download. We're then going to want to run the Zoom installer. You're then going to want to go to your About settings to make sure that your client matches the most recent version. And if it does, you're then ready to use your client with Zoom. Now, when you come to the download page, you might see other downloads that may be useful to you. For example, you'll see downloads for the mobile apps, as well as a client plugin to share your iPhone and iPad. But hopefully now you have downloaded the most recent version of the client. That means that as of this time, your version is secure as it can be. Welcome back. Now, it is within the Zoom desktop client that you can use Zoom to interact with individuals that are going to be inside of your contact list. So for example, if you know that you have one contact or more than one contact, you can interact with those individuals using Zoom. And so once you determine who your contacts are, what you can do is you can start to use the features such as the Zoom chat. And so in this case, you can write messages by text. And you can interact with the individual through Zoom. From within this desktop client, you can share a screenshot. You can also share and upload files. You can upload files from your personal computer, from your Box Drive, from your Google Drive, and from your Microsoft OneDrive. You can send the screenshot. So for example, if we were to go to this menu, we can click Hide Chat Window in the screenshot, and then we can click Screenshot. We can then highlight the screen. We can click Capture. And then you'll see that the screenshot is going to be inside of the area that you have with the chat. You click Enter, you can then send the screenshot. What you can also do with either one contact or with multiple contacts is you can set meetings. So for example, what we can do is we can start a specific Zoom meeting that we have already set up, and we can invite our contacts. We can also go to that contact and we can meet with the contact by clicking this button that says Meet. See then that clicking this button opens up the Zoom meeting interface, which you can then join with your computer audio, and you can start a meeting as long as the individual is going to be online, and you'll be able to use your audio visual in order to meet with that individual. Once the meeting is over, you can then click the End button. You can also use all of the other controls that are going to be associated with a Zoom meeting, such as record, screen share, and chat. Welcome back. Now you are going to want to be familiar with the controls that you have in your Zoom client. If you want to start a new meeting, you can do that by going to this button. And what you'll notice here on the right-hand side of the control is that you can choose whether to start your meeting with a video. You can untick this so that when your meeting starts, it will actually start without a video, or you can tick it back and the new meeting that you start will start with video. You can also start by using your personal meeting ID, or you can choose not to by clicking this button. So for example, if we wanted to start a meeting without the personal ID, we would leave this unticked. We would click Start New Meeting. This would open up our audio and our visual. We would join with our computer audio. And what we would then be able to do, even though we're in the room by ourselves, is we would then be able to invite other individuals to this meeting. And we can do that by going to this area, going to our participants. We can then click the Invite button. What we can do is, if we have contacts available, we can then invite those contacts. If we don't have those contacts available, we can copy an entire invitation. We'll then have that invitation on our clipboard, and we'll then be able to pass that information on to other individuals that we want to join the meeting that we have already started. Alternately, we can then just copy the URL, and we can pass that URL on to other individuals that we want to join the meeting. That URL will look something like the one that you see on your screen. What we can then do is, once the meeting has ended, we can then click End for that meeting. We can end the meeting for everyone that will be present. You'll then notice then that your client will then be available again. Let's assume then that you know of an individual that is conducting a meeting, and what you have is the meeting ID and you have the password. You can join that meeting from your Zoom client. And to do that, all you'll need to do is to click the Join button. You'll see that there will be a space there for your meeting ID for you to write it into this dialog box. You can then choose whether you're going to connect directly to the audio, as well as to have your video turned off when it's going to be turned on by default. What you can also do from your desktop client is to schedule a meeting inside of the Zoom system. What you're going to do here is you're going to click the Schedule button. You'll then be able to fill in the details as to what the meeting is going to be about. Once you have scheduled the meeting, it will then be available on your calendar. And if you have your scheduling calendar available on your desktop, it will then be part of your desktop software that you use in order to manage your calendar, in particular Microsoft Outlook. Now, the screen share button is mainly for those who are using Zoom Rooms. You will actually share your screen inside of the meeting. So you won't need to share your screen separately from within your Zoom client with individuals you're going to be working with online. That you would do inside of the multimedia area. Welcome back. Now, inside of the Zoom client, you will have your settings gear, and what you're going to do here is you're going to go to this gear. You're going to click on the settings, and you'll then have control over different settings available to you. So in the first set of settings, what you can do is you can make it so that Zoom will start when your computer is turned on when you have a Windows computer. Now, by default, you're going to have two settings enabled. You're going to have your minimize window setting as well as asking to confirm when a meeting is left. Now, you can untick those settings if you don't like them. Once you start to use them, you also have available to you a Use Dual Monitors feature. Now, this is going to allow you to use both monitors with your Zoom meetings. So let's assume that what we are doing is that we're going to leave this enabled. We can also enable a full screen automatically, and we can also enable them to automatically copy the invitation URL once the meeting starts. Now, that means then that you won't have to look for the URL. You already have it available to you inside of the clipboard. Now, we can enable that setting. Also, we can enable it so that we can show when we connected to the Zoom meeting. We could have it so that the client will remind us 5 minutes before any upcoming meeting, and you'll see that reminder here in this area. We can stop our video and audio when our display is going to be off, and then you can determine how you want your reaction to be when you give approval. You can do that by choosing the skin tone of the thumb you want to use. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to close the Zoom client, and we're going to open up our Zoom meeting, and we're going to then click on Join with Computer Audio. And what you're going to see here is that you're going to see your connection time at the top. You also see that your Zoom meeting is already going to be inside of full screen. Now, you'll remember that we don't have to go looking for that invitation link. What we can do is we can then paste the link automatically, since it should be inside of our clipboard. That means then that what we can do is we can then right-click and then paste. And our link will be there automatically because it was copied when we entered the Zoom room. So your general settings give you more control over your Zoom room. Welcome back. Now, you also have settings that will help you to control your video, and you can click those settings, and what you'll notice is that at the very top you're going to see your webcam and webs displaying. Now, for the sake of this video, the webcam is covered even though it is enabled and turned on. However, what you'll want to see is what's on your webcam. When you click on this button that says video, you'll see the camera that Zoom is using. You can change that camera by going to the drop-down menu and choosing the camera that you want to use that is connected to your device or your personal computer. If you want your video to be enabled for high definition, which will use more resources and give you a higher quality video, you can click on this button that says Enable HD. Now, one of the controls that you have when you're doing a Zoom meeting is to make sure that the participant's name are going to be displayed on their video when they're speaking. Now, you can have it so that this is disabled, and this is going to be especially helpful if you don't want that inside of the recording. Now, there's some overlap with this setting, making sure that your video is turned off when you're joining a meeting. Now, you can also make sure that your video is going to be previewed. And anyone that's not participating in the actual session, you can make it so that if they're not going to be using video, that they're hidden in the meeting. You can also spotlight your own video when you speak, or you can leave this disabled. Now, when you were displaying individuals inside of your gallery view, you can have it so that up to 49 individuals are going to be displayed on the screen. And you do that by enabling this area. Or you can leave this disabled. Now, you're also going to see some advanced settings, and in most cases these are going to be things that you may or may not want to work with. You're going to see them enabled by default. Welcome back. We're now going to go to our settings area. We're now going to look at the audio settings and the screen share settings. And basically you have control over both your speaker and your microphone. You do have some settings available to you in order to adjust your microphone as well as the audio when you are inside of the meeting. You have more advanced settings. And once again, these are going to be settings that for the most part you're not going to change, and you're going to leave the default settings as they are unless you specifically know exactly what you are changing. You also have screen share settings. And screen share settings matter most when you're inside of your meeting. For example, you can maximize the Zoom window when a participant is sharing the screen. Now, obviously, when you're doing that, you won't be able to enter full screen mode when the participant shares their screen. The same will be true of the advanced settings. In most cases, you are going to leave these advanced settings as they are unless you have a specific reason not to. Now, if you're using Zoom in order to conduct conversations with individuals with chat, you are going to be able to adjust your settings here. You also have a virtual background settings. And basically what you're going to be able to do with this setting is to set a virtual background. What you'll see here at the bottom is you'll see different elements that you can use for your virtual background. So if you were to click on one of these elements, you can then download the element to your hard drive. And basically this will be your background that will be showing while you are presenting using Zoom. Now, if you want to blend in to the background, you can use a green screen if you have one. Now, we will go over the recording settings in a separate video. You have control over the elements of your profile. You can also look at statistics for your broadcast. You can give feedback to Zoom. And one other element that you'll want to look at will be keyboard shortcuts. And basically what this will do is this will give you a way to use keystrokes while you're in your meeting in order to affect certain things inside of your presentation. So for example, if you want to mute or unmute your audio during the broadcast, you would use this keystroke, Alt-A, during the broadcast if you enable it. You can also change this so that you can make it into a keystroke that is easier for you to remember. And to put the keystroke in, what you're going to do, you are literally going to click the keys on your keyboard. So in this case, if we wanted to change this keystroke to Alt-D, we would click the Alt, then D. Once we have changed all of our keyboard shortcuts, we can then close this element. You also have accessibility elements. For example, you can change the size of your closed caption. You have a normal size in order to start with. However, you can make the size larger. You can also show your meeting controls. so that you'll be able to see which keys will help you to do things while you're in the meeting. And again, you have control over those keyboard strokes when you change them inside of this area. Welcome back. Now, one of the most important elements inside of your settings area is going to be the tab for your recording settings. And this is important because it will be the location where your recording will be stored on your hard drive. You can change that location by clicking this button that says Change, and you can set the folder exactly where you want it to be on your hard drive. What you can also do is you can choose a specific location with each meeting. If that's the case, you're going to need to make sure that this is going to be ticked and enabled. If you want to have a separate audio file for each participant during the course of the meeting, you can enable this in this area. If you want your recording to be of a specific size so that you'll be able to put it inside of your video editing program, you'll want to make sure that this element is going to be enabled. If you want to add a timestamp to your recording, you'll want to make sure that this area is going to be enabled. And if you also want to record video during your screen sharing, you can also do that by having this box ticked. Specifically, if you want the video to be placed next to the screen sharing, you can do that by clicking this element. And of course, you can keep the temporary recording files. Now, all of these are going to be things that you can manage during the course of your recording. If you have a paid account or a pro account, you can determine exactly how much cloud recording space that you have here inside of the client. If you want to manage it by deleting some of the files that you have available to you, you'll need to go to your web-based portal in order to do that. And you can do that by clicking this Manage button. And if your cloud recordings is enabled, that will bring you to your account online where you can manage your cloud recordings. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. Welcome back. Now, as stated before, you also have settings available inside of your Zoom account. So when you click this link that says View More Settings inside the General tab, this is going to take you to your Zoom account where you should be logged in. If you're not logged in when you get to the site, Zoom will request that you put in your login and password. And you should now be in the settings interface inside of your Zoom account. Now, by default, you'll be taken to your settings area inside of your account. If you want to look at your account, you can go to the right-hand corner to look at your profile. You can click right on top of your profile, and that's going to take you to your Zoom profile. And these are going to be elements that you can customize inside of your profile. Wherever you have set meetings, you'll be able to find them in the meetings area. You'll have tabs for upcoming meetings. You'll have tabs for previous meetings as well as meeting templates. If you have the webinar plan enabled, you will be able to find your webinars here in this area, and you'll find upcoming webinars, previous webinars, and webinar templates. In the next tab, you'll see that you can manage your recordings. You will have tabs for local recordings. You will also have tabs for cloud recordings if you have that feature enabled inside of your account. If you click the link right below recordings, you'll click the settings link. It'll bring you back to your settings area. And you will be able to control your meeting settings. You'll be able to control your recording settings. And you'll be able to control your telephone settings. Now, managing the recordings in Zoom is a very important part to the process of archiving your meetings. As a result of that, we will cover this in several additional videos. For right now, we are going to move on to the rest of your left side panel, and we're going to go to the user management section. Once you do that, you can click on the user setting. And if you have other individuals connected to your account, you'll be able to manage those individuals inside of the user area. Then naturally, if you were just operating your account by yourself, you will not need to manage additional users. To that end, you can assign specific individuals to roles inside of Zoom: owner, admin, or member. Now, room management is where Zoom is in operation in specific offices using its Zoom Rooms features. If you are doing online webinars and online presentations, you're likely not to use this feature. The account management section is where you'll manage the logistics of your account, such as billing, as well as your account settings and profile. One thing you'll want to take note of if you have the webinar setting is that you can go inside of webinar settings and you can brand your webinars in this area with graphics that you can upload to Zoom. In the advanced setting, in the left side menu, you can also click on advanced. You can click on this link that says App Marketplace. It will take you to the App Marketplace where you can find connectors for Zoom. Welcome back. In this video, what we're going to do is to go back to the settings area on the left side tab. You're going to see two tabs. One's the meeting tab and one is the recording tab. As stated earlier, we are going to work with the recording tab in several additional videos. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the meeting tab. And you'll see different links inside of the submenu. These are not separate menus. They're going to take you deeper inside of this menu that you're looking at in this area. So for example, if we were to just look at the schedule meeting subtab, you're going to see that you can enable it so that anytime you start a meeting that your video will be on. And all you'll have to do is enable this. If you don't enable this, what's going to happen is that you will need to enable it once you're inside of the meeting room. You can do the same thing with those that are participating with you. Now again, the participants can change this during the course of the meeting, but you can have it so that their video comes on as soon as they are part of the meeting. In most cases, you are going to work with the default setting of computer and telephone audio in terms of audio type that individuals will need to use in order to connect with your session. Now again, depending on what circumstances you'll need, you can then change this to either telephone or computer audio. If you want to allow individuals to become part of the meeting before you arrive as the host, you can enable that here. And you've seen in the meeting invitations that each invitation is coded with a personal meeting ID. You can actually turn this off for your meetings. All you'll need to do here is click Turn Off. You can make it so that individuals will need a CAPTCHA in order to become part of your meeting, or you can disable it if it's already there. And you can require individuals to authenticate if they are joining you from their web browser. In addition to password enablement, you can come down to the last link where you can set up an upcoming meeting reminder by clicking on this link. Welcome back. We are now in the meeting tab in your settings area. Now that we have worked with the schedule meeting submenu, we're going to click on the in meeting submenu. And there are a few settings that are going to be important. You can allow or disable private chat between members by enabling this tab. You can autosave all of the in-meeting chats. You can play sounds when individuals leave or come to the meeting. Now by default, you cannot have individuals transferring files inside of your meeting, but you can enable that feature. And you can also add polling to your meeting controls so that when you open up the Zoom meeting, this will be available to you. Now by default, the meeting control bar does not show in your screen. You can make it so that this meeting toolbar always shows. You can make it so that your Zoom windows show during a screen share, or you can leave it disabled by default. In most cases, you're going to want to leave this disabled by default unless you have a specific reason as to why you'd want to keep them. You can make it so that only the host can share their screen, or you can keep it at the default setting so that all participants can share their screen. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to go through the rest of the controls to determine how you want your meetings to operate. And once you've done that, you can then work with the In Meeting tab, the more advanced settings. Welcome back. Now in this video, we're going to look at the In Meeting Advanced submenu. Now you'll notice then that you can report inappropriate behavior to Zoom, and you can have them look at that behavior from their end. You can also set it up so that participants can be assigned to breakout rooms when they're scheduling the meeting. Otherwise, this is typically going to be unticked by default. You can use Zoom to provide one-to-one support with another participant on a particular webinar, but that has to be enabled here. You can also use closed captioning in your Zoom webinars or meeting. And you can allow people on the call to save closed captions and/or transcripts. You can leave it so that other individuals can take control of your camera. You can also make sure that the individuals that are on the call will be using Group HD video. Now, one of the things you're going to note is that this does take up more bandwidth. And so typically this is not going to be enabled by default. And you're going to want to test this, and more than likely the higher the number of people that are going to be in your meeting, you want to consider leaving this disabled. You can also make it so that individuals can use their virtual backgrounds. Again, now this is going to be enabled by default. If it is too distracting for people to have access to virtual backgrounds, or you don't want it to appear on your recording, you can turn this part off. You can also make sure that all guest participants that are going to be on your meeting or webinar are going to be identified. Now again, this is going to be something that's going to be enabled by default. You can make it so that those individuals are not going to be identified on the actual call. Now the rest of these features are going to be disabled by default. And in most cases, you're going to want to leave them unless you have a compelling reason to use them that way. Now when it comes to your waiting room, you can have individuals placed in a waiting room, or you can disable the waiting room altogether. Again, this does give people a midway point when they're first coming on the call. Now, if you have the webinar plugin, you can allow live streaming of the meeting. However, you are going to need to have this enabled in your account in order to do it. Now, in the next video, we will go over the email notification section. Welcome back. You are now looking at the email notification section of the settings. And you're going to notice that you can have emails sent to you when certain things occur inside of your account. For example, when a cloud recording is available. You can also, within this submenu, have a copy sent to the person who scheduled the meeting in the first place, or you can disable this. You can have an email sent to you when attendees join the meeting before you, or you can disable this. That's not going to be practical. Whenever someone cancels a meeting, you can have an email sent out to you. You can also have an email sent out to you when there's going to be an alternative host removed from the meeting. When somebody schedules a meeting for a specific host, you can have an email sent out to you. And then whenever your cloud recording will be permanently deleted, you can have an email sent out to you. As you know, when you delete an email inside of Zoom, those emails go to a midway point before they're actually deleted, and you can make it so that you'll be notified before that email is going to be deleted. Welcome back. We are now going to look at the recording tab. And these factors are going to be determined by the level of account that you have. If you have cloud recording enabled in your account, you'll have cloud recording available to you. If you don't, this will be disabled. You will not have it available. Now, basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be recording your meetings locally. And you can also give your host permission to record the meeting also, or you can disable their permission and then save it. You can also make it so that the recording will not be saved at all. You can turn off the recording so that it will not be recorded and or saved. Now that's going to be important because, as you can see, there is no element for you to record the meeting with recording disabled in your settings. Now, if you do have cloud recording enabled, you can toggle it on. You're going to have choices available to you that you'll want to take note of. And these are going to be settings that you're going to want to make sure that you've seen before you make a decision as to whether you want them enabled in all of your meetings. All of these are going to be made available to you, in some cases by default, but you can always tick them off if they're not something that you want. You're going to want to take note of saving chat messages, as well as some of the settings that are going to be overlap from settings that you may have configured in the Zoom client. Once you've done that for your cloud recording, you can save it, or you can disable cloud recording altogether. The one thing you're going to see as a setting is you can enable automatic recording. And this means that as soon as you enter the meeting, Zoom will be recording the meeting. And you can set this as automatic. Now, the only other way to control this when the recording starts would be that you will set the recording manually once your meeting starts. To demonstrate this, we're going to turn the automatic recording off. You're going to see that you have local recording enabled. We're now going to schedule a new meeting. We're going to save it, and then we're just going to start a meeting so that we can see the audio visual panel come available. And what you'll see here inside of the panel in the Zoom meeting is that we have a record button that we can set manually in order to start the recording. Now, one of the things you'll note is that when you click automatic recording, it says that you'll be recording on the local computer. However, let's assume then that you have cloud recording enabled and it's turned on. When you turn on automatic recording, you're going to be given the option of automatic recording either on your local computer or in the cloud. Now, when you do this and you have automatic recording enabled in the cloud, the host can pause and stop the auto recording in the cloud. This is not available when you're recording on your local computer. You can control access to individuals that will be watching the recording from the cloud. You can control it by IP address. You can control it by making sure that the individuals that come to your recording will have to enter some kind of authentication. You can also require a password for individuals to watch the recording again from the cloud. And you can make it so that the recording will be auto-deleted after some days. Now, by default, the host can delete any cloud recordings as needed, and you can have a recording disclaimer. You can ask participants for consent when a recording starts. You can also ask the host to confirm when you're starting a recording. Welcome back. Now, right above the settings area, you are going to see any recordings that you have available to you. You have cloud recordings enabled. You're going to have a tab for cloud recordings, and you're going to see your cloud recordings listed in this area. You can share those recordings with other individuals, so what you'll need to do here is you'll need to click the share button and you'll have some choices available. You can share the recording publicly. You can make it so that only authenticated viewers can watch the video. You can add an expiration date to the video. You can make it so that viewers can download the video, or you can disable this feature. You can make it so that the recording is going to be on demand, meaning people can watch it whenever they want, and you can make it so that registration will be required when they do. You can password protect your recording, or you can turn off the password protection, and once you have all of the settings the way you want, you can click this arrow, and then you can copy your sharing information to the clipboard, and you will then be ready to share your webinar with others. You'll also have a place for these recordings that are sent to your personal computer, and you can do that by clicking this Local Recordings tab. You'll see here that Zoom will list the location of your recording and where it is on your hard drive. You can actually delete that recording from your hard drive by clicking this button. This then is how you will be able to manage your recordings from within your Zoom account in the cloud. Welcome back. What we're going to do first is we're going to admit this guest. We're going to make them part of our meeting. We're going to close the participant box. And what we're going to do is we're going to right-click at the top of the stream, And basically, one of the things we can do now is we can have another individual inside of the room, and we can make it so that the video is going to be pinned. That means then that the camera and the recording is going to stay on that individual that we decide is going to be pinned. Otherwise, we will be the individual pinned. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click Pin the Video. Now what we're seeing is what's actually going to be part of the recording, because the video will then be pinned. If we need to unpin the video, we can go to the left-hand corner. We can click this button that says Unpinned Video. But what we can add to this system is that we can go and we can share our screen. So for example, what we can do here is we can click Share Screen. We can do it so that one participant can share at a time, or as the host, we can make it so that multiple participants can share simultaneously. Now for the sake of simplicity, we are going to make it so that only one participant can share at a time. We are then going to click our screen share button, and we're going to share our screen. Once we've completed the process of sharing our screen, we can click the Stop Screen Share. That brings us back to the Zoom meeting. Now what we also have available to us are going to be called breakout rooms. We can go down to the bottom and we can click the button that says Breakout Rooms. We're going to assign specific individuals to breakout rooms. We can do it so that these individuals will be assigned automatically, or we can do it manually. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to create one room, and what we can do is we can then assign an individual that's part of the meeting to that open room. So these controls give us more control over how we're going to conduct our meeting and how we're going to present our content. Welcome back. Now that you know the default settings that you can configure in Zoom, we now need to go into the meetings area to set up a meeting. And to do that, we're going to go inside of meetings on the left side menu. And what we're going to do is we're going to click Schedule a Meeting. When we do that, we're going to write in our topic and title, and this is going to be something that your meeting attendees are going to see. Like any other webinar platform, you can choose to make this a recurring meeting so that when individuals sign up, they'll be able to be part of a recurring webinar or meeting. You can make it so that registration is required, meaning that individuals will have to put in their name and email address in order to become part of the webinar, or you can leave this unticked and individuals that get the link will be able to join your meeting. You can require the meeting password when you set this up, or you can disable it by unticking this box. Once again, you have control over whether hosts or participants have video to be turned on automatically, and both participant and host will then have their video turned on as they enter the room. You can control over the audio. The default setting is going to be both computer audio and telephone. And one thing that you can do with your meeting is you can enable it so that individuals will be able to join the meeting before the host arrives to the meeting. You can also make it so that participants are going to be mute as soon as they come into the room. This will keep things from being disruptive if someone comes in late. You can make it so that authenticated users can join, and you can have individuals assigned to a breakout room as they enter, or you can do it manually once you are inside of the meeting room. What you can then do is you can then click Save. Now you can actually stream your meeting across the internet on both Facebook Live and YouTube. You can use this panel in order to connect to Facebook Live, YouTube, or a custom live streaming service. Setting up a webinar is largely the same. You can click Schedule a Webinar, and you can write in the information that you need. You can have a recurring webinar and required registration. You can turn on video for hosts and panelists. Now, one thing that you can do with a webinar is that you can have a Q&A area where individuals can ask questions and you can give specific answers. You can also enable a practice session so that you can see what your webinar is going to look like before you go live. What you can also do is you can make it so that authenticated users can join. Once you have it set up, you can then click schedule. And just as before, you can scroll down to the bottom, and what you can do is you can set up your live streaming just as you did with your meeting. And again, that's going to be based on the fact that you have the webinar system enabled in your account. You can then set your emails. And basically, every email that goes out, what you can do is you can edit that email so that it says what you want it to say. You can also brand the webinar, and you can upload your banner, your logo, and then you will then be able to customize your post attendee URL by placing in a page where you want people to go. And you can customize your Q&A. This is basically going to give you more options when you have the webinar set up. And one of the things you'll notice if we were to click start this webinar is that the appearance is going to be pretty much the same as if you were doing a meeting. Now obviously you were able to broadcast to more people. However, the meeting is not going to appear marketably different from the webinar. Welcome back. Now what we're going to do here in this video is we're going to walk through a process start to finish. And instead of starting with a client this time, we're going to start from inside of our account. So we're going to come to our Zoom account, and we're going to go and click on this area that says My Account, assuming that we are already logged in. So we're going to click on My Account. What we're now going to do is we're going to go to our Meetings area, and it's from there that we can schedule a new meeting. So we're then going to click on Schedule a New Meeting. When we click on Schedule a New Meeting, we are going to give our new meeting a name. And we are going to set a time. We're going to consider the duration of our meeting. We're going to determine that this meeting is not going to be recurring. So this is going to be one time, so we're going to leave this unticked. We are not going to require registration. We just want people to be able to click the link and join the webinar. And so because of that, we don't want to require a password. We don't want to give our attendees anything more to do other than to come. Now in terms of video, what we want to happen is we want our video to be turned on when we enter. So we're going to turn this on. However, we don't want our participants to have their video turned on as they enter. So we're not going to do that by default. The default setting for audio is to have both computer audio and telephone. We're going to leave that as is. We do want our attendees to be able to join before we get there if that is necessary. So we're going to click on Enable Join Before Host. We also want to mute the participants upon entry. Depending on when they come in, we want to make sure that they do not disrupt the meeting or the webinar. We're going to enable the waiting room for those who come. And we're going to leave this unticked. The default setting is not to have individuals to be authenticated. And we don't need to pre-assign breakout rooms because that's not going to be part of our meeting. Now in terms of recording, we are going to record the meeting automatically. In this case, what we want to do is to record it on our local computer. And once we've done that, we're then going to click Save. Now, if we did use any of these calendars, we would add this to our calendar. However, we're going to skip this part and we're going to move forward. Now, what we now have is we now have a URL and an invitation in order to give people to attend the meeting. So what we're going to do here is we're going to copy this URL and we're going to pass this on to all of the potential attendees that we want to come to the meeting. Now, one thing that Zoom gives us the ability to do is to convert this meeting to a webinar by using this link at the bottom of that is if we have webinars attached to our account. And we're going to go ahead and do this part. We're going to convert this meeting to a webinar. We're going to click Convert. Now you'll notice that we have more options available to us. For example, we can do polls and Q&A on our webinar when we cannot do them inside of the meeting. We can also brand this particular part of our webinar. And we have control over our email settings. So for example, we might brand for this specific webinar. We could upload a banner. we can upload a particular logo for this webinar. And we have a logo there. We can set the post attendee URL. This is going to take people to a specific place after the webinar. So what we're going to do here is we're going to edit this, and we're going to write in where we want individuals to go when they have seen the webinar or when they have attended. And we're going to click Save. One of the other options we have available to us in a webinar is that we can post a survey. And if we already have an existing survey in place, we can put that survey here in this area. Now, once we have the webinar set, what we can do is we can click Start this webinar. That's going to open up our Zoom meeting portal. We are now going to join the meeting. And it's from this panel that we can launch our Q&A, our polls, and we can engage in chat with any of the individuals that are going to be on our call. We can share our screen in the meeting, or we can use the whiteboard given to us by Zoom if we want to demonstrate something specific. When we do that, we are sharing our whiteboard with everyone who is on the call. Once we've completed the screen sharing, what we're going to do is click Stop Share. That's going to bring us back to this Zoom room, and we're back in the default setting. What we can do now, of course, is we can end our meeting. We can end the meeting for everyone. And what's going to happen now is that our meeting is going to be converted to our hard drive. Now, we're not saving this to the cloud. We are saving this to our hard drive. So we are going to have to work through a conversion process. We could click Stop Converting if we wanted to. However, we do want this to be recorded, and we do want this to be archived on our hard drive. We are prompted then as to where we want to save this recording. Now, when we go to the directory, we're going to see an MP4 file, we're going to see an M3U file, and we're going to see an M4A file. Obviously, the one that we're going to use is going to be the MP4 file. Now, Zoom will save, because we designated it to do this, audio-only files in a specific area. So we've now walked through an entire process, start to finish, of starting a meeting, converting it to a webinar, and then retrieving our recording. Welcome back. Now, there are as many ways to record a presentation when you're giving it as there are configurations. In this video, we're going to work with the simplest way. In order to do that, you should have dual monitors. So what we're going to do is we're going to join the meeting with our computer audio. And so once we join, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start our PowerPoint presentation. And so you want to make sure that you've started your slideshow. And what that's going to do is that's typically going to hide the Zoom window. You're going to have to bring it back by bringing it active in front of your presentation. Now what you're going to do is you're going to click the Share Screen button. And what's going to happen now is you're going to see a couple of options. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for the PowerPoint presentation where you see it and it looks like an active slideshow. So you're going to click on top of your active slideshow, and then you're going to then click Share button. What you'll then see is this top bar here. And what you need to know is that this bar will not be showing during your presentation. And so you can scroll through your slides. And once you've completed your PowerPoint presentation, what you can do is you can either end the meeting or you can just stop the share. If you stop the share, what that will do is that will give you an easy place to begin editing your video. And so in this case, that's what we're going to do. We're going to click Stop Share. And then once we've done that, we can then end the meeting. We'll then click End Meeting for All. Now what's happening is that our recording is now going to our cloud drive, or in some cases, if you are using a local recording, it is now being processed as a local recording. You'll then see that your recording is then processing. Now that we have the video open, what we're going to do is we're just going to fast forward the video to the point where you can see what it's going to look like when we're working through the presentation. And as you can see here, that top bar is not going to be in the video, and it's not going to be showing when you are broadcasting to the other individuals. So as you work through your presentation, you are going to want to make sure that you click that active PowerPoint window once you have set it up as a presentation or as a slideshow. Welcome back. You now know how to use the basics of Zoom. You should now know how to start with the client, start meetings or webinars, as well as change the settings that you'll need in order to operate your meeting or your webinar. Now, we've also walked through the customization of settings, whether those settings are for the meeting or for recordings. We've walked through user management as well as account management. That should now mean that you can successfully start a new meeting, create the meeting according to either customized or default settings, start the meeting, open and use the Zoom client, use your computer audio. You should now be able to start your video, admit any participants. You should now be able to start a chat with anyone who is going to be inside of your room. You should also be able to share your screen. We've walked through the creation of breakout rooms, as well as ending the meeting once it is completed. And we walked through the process of managing our cloud recordings or local recordings saved to our hard drive. We can now share those recordings to others to watch them on demand or at our specification. So now, with that, thanks, and I'll see you either in another video or in another course.